Okay. Well, I had hoped to hike on down to Cliff Face or Pretty Pond or something to make a video for you guys there, but I got waylaid mucking out the spring here and I'm running out of time. And I guess if you wait for the perfect time to do something, it'll just never happen. So here we are. So today in our Pulling Threads video, I'm going to tell you the tale of how Thor losing his hammer Mjolnir led to him becoming the reluctant bride of a giant. Now that might be hard to envision, but it turns out there's an Old Norse text that describes just that. This is the Poetic Edda, and along with the Prose Edda that we discussed in the Kennings video, this makes up the source material for Norse mythology. So this isn't some sort of modern fanfiction in which Thor dresses up like a bride, this is actual canon. This will also give me the chance to explain one of my more complicated cat names. Now when I first decided to make this video, I was worried it might not fit in too well with my theme of doing books that inspired Lewis and Tolkien, but then I remembered that this edition of the Poetic Edda is literally called Tolkien's Bookshelf. And while I don't know if this story itself made it into Tolkien's work somewhere, I do know that Mirkwood, Oakenshield, and Gandalf all make an appearance in here. So he was definitely inspired by it. But anyway, let's get into the story. And like usual, I'll be quoting kinda haphazardly through this text, so if you want to read the full thing, I highly recommend it. This book and this story in particular are really fun. So this story starts off like a lot of good stories do, and that is in medias res, or in the middle of things. Thor is waking up and realizing that he's missing his hammer. It says, Rolf was the thunderer when he awakened and missed his hammer, the mighty Mjolnir. His beard was quivering, his locks were shivering as he groped around him, the son of Earth. Now he does the only sensible thing he can think of, and that is to tell Loki about it, since Loki is so trustworthy, you know. He says, List now, Loki, to this I shall tell thee. The god of thunder is reft of his hammer. So right away they go to Freya, and Thor asks if they can use her feather coat to help fly around and look for his hammer Mjolnir. She readily agrees, and Loki flies off to go look for it. He flies all the way to Jotunheim, where the giants live, and meets Thrym, the lord of the giants, who's braiding his dog's hair for some reason, and also smoothing over the manes of his steeds. Loki asks Thrym if he's stolen Mjolnir, and Thrym says, Yeah, I have hidden the Thunderer's hammer 8 miles under, deep in the earth, and never a being back shall win it, till he bring me as a bride, fair Freya. So Loki flies back to Thor with this news, and tells him that Thrym wants Freya as a bride. And they knew exactly what to do. Forthwith they went to find fair Freya. Bind thee, Freya, in bridal linen, we twain must drive into Jotunheim. Wroth then was Freya, fiercely she panted. The halls of Asgard then shake, and she even bursts her necklace with anger. Know me to be the most wanton of women if I drive with thee into Jotunheim. So they gather all the gods and goddesses together for a meeting to discuss what they should do, since she doesn't want to go clean up Thor's mess. Spake then Heimdall, of gods the fairest. Now this is Heimdall, who guards the Bifrost and who sired all the socio-economic classes, and he comes up with an idea. He says, Come, bind we Thor in bridal linen, let him wear her necklace. Let us cause the keys to jingle under him, weeds of a woman to dangle round him, and over his breast lay ample jewels, and daintily let us hood his head. Spake the thunderer of gods, the sturdiest. Womanish then the powers will call me, if I let me be bound in bridal linen. So here's mighty Thor, cowering at the idea of having to wear a dress. Spake then Loki, Silence, Thor, with words so witless. And he says that Asgard will be overrun if they don't get Mjolnir back, because they need it to protect Asgard from the giants. But I suspect he has an ulterior motive, just because he wants to see Thor in a dress. But once they've bound Thor up in the bridal dress, Loki actually agrees to come with them as his serving maid, so he won't be alone out there. So they venture off with Thor's goats drawing them, of course. And when Thrym knows they're coming, he puts together a big wedding feast, saying, I own many treasures, I rule many riches, and Freya alone to me seems lacking. But when Thor gets there, he has a little trouble masking his typical appetite. Thor ate an ox, and 8 whole salmon, with dainties all, as should a damsel. 3 full cups of mead he quaffed. Spake then Thrym, the lord of giants, Didst ever see damsel eat so bravely? Ne'er have I seen one bite so boldly, nor maiden quaff more cups of mead. But Loki, always clever, has Thor's back. He says, "Naught has Freya these 8 nights eaten, so sore her yearning for Jotunheim." Stooped then Thrym 'neath the veil to kiss her. Back he leapt the whole hall's length. Why are fair Freya's eyes so fearful? Meseems from those eyes a fire is flaming. But Loki again has Thor's back, saying, "Not a whit has Freya these 8 nights slumbered, so sore her yearning for Jotunheim." But then in came the wretched sister of Jotuns, and dared to beg for a bridal token. So she's asking for them to give her rings off their fingers as a token of their affection. But Thrym puts a stop to that and says, "Bring in the hammer, the bride to hallow. Mjolnir lay on the knee of the maiden." Now, he did this because apparently people asked Thor to bless their wedding feasts with his hammer Mjolnir. So when they bring the Mjolnir in and set it on Thor's lap, what you might expect happens. Laughed in his breast the heart of the Thunderer. Strong was his soul when he spied his hammer. He first smote Thrym, the lord of giants, and all the Jotun's kindred crushed. No surprise. But then smote he the ancient sister of Jotuns, her who had begged for a bridal token. She got but a stroke in the place of shillings, Mjolnir's mark, and never a ring. And thus Thor won him again his hammer, and apparently his masculinity. Now, I haven't seen all the Marvel movies, but I don't think this episode ends up in any of them somehow. And I think it should. But I guess they did make Thor a woman, so maybe that counts? But remember, this is not the only story that's in the Poetic Edda. It also has the famous Ragnarok, where the gods meet their dooms before the world is reborn. And it has a whole chapter dedicated to Thor and Odin exchanging insults, and a whole bunch of people are called up from the dead to tell others what they know. There are also tales of non-god heroes, and all sorts of other fun stuff. So if you're interested in buying the Poetic Edda, or the Prose Edda that we talked about in the Kennings video, there are some things that will be useful for you to know first. In fact, when I was trying to buy a good edition of the Poetic Edda, I had some troubles that kept me from reading it actually for years. So to save you some time and maybe some money, I made a separate video, which I'll link at the end of this one or in the description below, and it'll explain the different editions that I've encountered and the different features that you should be aware of when you're trying to purchase one. But how does all this relate to a name for my cat? So this is Thrymir's Bane, or Thornby for short, because Thorn is the Old Norse letter that starts the word Thrymir. It's the th sound, like in Thor. Now, when I got her as a chew toy for my other cat, Babartsita, I noticed that she had a Mjolnir shape on her face. And so since she had Mjolnir, she had to be Thor, right? But she was a female Thor. So I thought of the only episode that I knew of where Thor was acting like a girl. And so that was when he killed Thrymir, or was Thrymir's Bane. And therefore her name is a kenning for Thor. And now I'm just realizing, though, that if she is Thrymir's Bane, and she is the companion of my other cat, Babartsita, then that makes Babartsita probably Loki, which is very fitting. Anyway, enough about my cats. I hope you enjoyed the fun story about Thor. I got to get back to cleaning out this spring and head out of here because it's going to get dark kind of soon. So have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Okay, with a bit of bushwhacking, I was able to find the auxiliary spring again. Let's see if she's still flowing. It's wet. There's the outlet, which isn't flowing, but I bet you it's just silted over